Badger fans, what is going on? Let's get some thoughts from Brian Smith on where the Badger fan base should be at right now. Got clobbered by Bama, USC coming up, and also some of the thoughts on NIL players redshirting to get out of the rest of the season and potentially cash in on future years. What's his perspective on that? All that and more. Locked on Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Right now, a great new offer, $5 bet guarantees you $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, let's get Brian Smith on. We haven't had Brian on in a minute since we were talking about how Wisconsin can trip up Alabama potentially. So that was 42-10. Listen, let me start here with you. And you, for the record, you said it would take +2 in the turnover game or a special teams play. None of this happened. Where should Badger fans be right now? Because Badger fans are getting pretty frustrated.
I told you with this schedule in the way that it has worked out, ironically, the school I was most curious about was SC and how they would adapt. I'll come back to them for multiple reasons. Obviously, you play them in a minute. But there's no friendly with the following statement. Wisconsin's schedule is gone up not a notch, but 2. There is no more Sisters of the Poor like Minnesota being the big game. That's almost like a MAC team now. And that's a team that can beat you. Wisconsin is in a spot right now where 6-6 is where they're at until recruiting completely changes. 6-6, 8-4 is a great year. Schedule is just completely different. They don't have the same athletes outside the numbers, and they don't have the depth on the lines, specifically defense, as I always harp on. This is what you get. Give credit to Bama, by the way. They have a very good staff, and they were motivated. Everybody picked them to kick the living crap out of the Badgers, but they didn't believe all the crap coming in, and they played well. Mm-hmm. And then on top of it, like you mentioned, no block field goal, no punt return touchdown, no strip sack fumble, scoop and score. Wisconsin, I mean, they're special plays, but they didn't make any of them. So when you have a quarterback that's hurt, another guy that's just at quarterback, this is what you get. So I think Wisconsin basically has Drew Pine at quarterback. That's what I basically think. And I know that's not very friendly, but I've never been very nice, and I'm not going to start now. I'm just going to tell it like it is. Wisconsin's in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and you sent me a message. I think it was after the game. It was either week 1 or week 2. I forget. You kind of sent me a message with Tyler Van Dyke's stat line, and he said, "Ruh-roh." Obviously, he's hurt now. Tore his ACL first drive of the Bama game. They're going with Tanner Mordecai. But it felt like he was not trending to be the answer anyway, based on what we had saw from the first 2 weeks. To me, the big problem is, I mean, there's multiple problems. We've hit on defensive line athletes, but they haven't got the quarterback right yet either. Is that a Phil Longo offensive coordinator issue, do you think? Or is that just, listen, very few teams get the quarterback right?
Let's look at Longo's history. I have some love-hate with him. I think sometimes he's too soft with some certain things, but there have been some of his offenses that were great running the ball. It's been a little bit hit or miss. So when he has elite talent, I think he's fine. Remember, I forget what year it was, one of the craziest stat lines I've ever seen. His unit played Miami at Miami, and not one, but both of his running backs averaged 10+ yards a carry. I mean, Papa Bear Hallis would be cheering, you know what I mean? And so would every other famous coach, like, Lambeau and all these guys. They would have all loved it. But he's also had situations where if the quarterback's not right, it just doesn't make it work. And quarterback right, let's define that. Everybody thinks about throwing the football. Okay. But you got to make the right checks at the line, which side to run, get out of run plays, do it fast enough. Everybody understands it. Oh, by the way, after the snap, they adjust again. You have to be ready to adjust on the fly with a 300-pound man trying to mash your face. It is hard. So everybody in the stands, I talk to coaches about this all the time. It's hilarious. They always think it's the quarterback's fault. Let me give you an example. I do photos at Auburn games. They are atrocious at quarterback, okay? They're bad. However, they have 8 picks, which is 133rd out of 134 teams. Okay, so Badger fans, just so you know, there are other teams struggling. Here's a key stat on that, though. 3 of those picks are off deflections, and another one, the receiver ran the wrong route. 4 of them. How many times have I seen a single post about the receiver screwing up?
Yeah, good point.
So I'm there. I watch, and you does not care. He doesn't mince words. He's like, "Hey, wrong route." It was the game against Cal or whatever. Towards the end, receiver ran a go, quarterback threw a post. Didn't work well. That stuff's still going on too, and they don't have difference makers outside. The slot guy, I know he's going to play in the NFL. You can key on him and bracket him because they're not afraid of anything outside. It's hilarious because I cover Florida State, a school who is as rich at wide receiver as any team in the country. They couldn't run past my dead grandmother right now and catch a pass, and they've got speed out the wazoo, and they are atrocious at wide receiver. Atrocious. They've got one of the highest rates of drops in the country. So it's always more than you think. Let me ask you this. Scale of 1 to 10, pass protection only. Where would you rate the Badgers in terms of protecting the QB?
I would actually say they're a better than average offensive line right now. I'd say 6.5, somewhere in that range, above average.
Okay. At least they've got, the guy they got a quarterback now, he can at least make the first guy miss, get out of it and throw it away, right? Like that's a fair estimate of him.
Not really. So they got Braden Locke, who was committed to, he was a Mike Leach commitment a couple years ago. He's very much not the athlete. He's a lesser athlete than Tyler Van Dyke and a little smaller.
Okay, so this is going in, the canoe is taking on water and you're in crocodile territory here. Look, good luck against SC then. They have a real coordinator now. The guy that was at UCLA last year, he's legit. They're not dominant because they haven't recruited well on defense. And as you and I talking, this is hilarious. Bear Alexander is opting out or whatever now. That is pathetic, by the way.
We're going to talk about the NIL opt-outs in a second, although it is fair to point out USC is now down a defensive lineman that at least is a rotational player for them.
And he's 330 pounds and athletic, okay? He is an animal when he wants to play.
We are definitely
whether or not he shows up on a game is a whole other story, but whatever.
I want to hit you with this. Maybe Mentor, who we've talked about a couple times on the show, true freshman. He was a quarterback, 6'4", out of Texas. Pretty good recruit, but he's not going to be ready this year. My bigger question is, can you live continuing year after year going into the portal for quarterbacks? Because year 1 with Fickle, it was Mordecai. Year 2, it's Van Dyke and Braden Locke. Year 3, they're going to have to get another portal guy.
Let me add to that. There's a good chance they need 2 more.
Mm-hmm.
As a general, this is the rule of how it's worked forever. And I study quarterback more than anything else because it's the most important position. A few years ago, the guys that just went in the draft, Caleb, Drake, and those guys. Drake redshirted. Guy that's a top 3 pick, redshirted. What does that tell you about quarterback?
Takes time.
Caleb was good in a few games, but there was the game against Kansas. This is when Kansas first started getting good. The first half, he had 44 yards or 50 yards or something. And you're like, whoa. And he was one of the best high school quarterbacks I'd ever seen. If you don't have a guy that meets all of the following criteria, not part, all of them, the chances of you having a good quarterback are pretty slim. At least 3rd year removed from high school, has played at least 4 or 5 games in the past, come in, injuries, whatever, fits the system to a T, has a great O-line, has a ton of talent around him at receiver, tight end. And then you still got to pray because it's usually at minimum 400 or 500 passes in before they get it. That means a season. There's just no shortcut. That's why all these teams throw money at quarterbacks in the portal. They know it's a pain. I won't name names. There's a couple of schools I know already that have some younger guys that think they're going to be the guy next year, but they're going to be like sophomores or juniors. They're going to the portal. I already know they're going to the portal. They're at least going to try. They're going to lie to everybody in their locker room because they think, because if they tell them they know they're going to leave. It's show me an honest coach in recruiting in the portal, and I'll show you a guy soon to be unemployed too. It's a cutthroat business. So Wisconsin's kind of in that boat because next year is year 3 or 4.
Year 3 of Fickle.
What is the key year in a coaching tenure? 3. Do you think he's going to go with an unproven sophomore?
I don't think so.
Yeah. 0 chance. They will have a portal quarterback. Now, if that guy beats him out in fall camp or whatever, you roll with it. The money's already spent, blah, blah, blah. But my other question is, do you think they'll actually go out and spend by the definition that me spend? I do not.
No. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at FanDuel. FanDuel remains the number one source for all of your sports betting needs. FanDuel is the official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network for a reason. It's fast, it's simple. I always say this, do it responsibly as always. But if you are doing it responsibly, it's a great time to spice up your weekend. NFL's going on. Baseball playoffs coming up. Basketball's not going to be far behind. College football. Y'all already know I'm on Wisconsin this weekend. I am. Like, people are giving me flack for it. I think people are getting a little off the wagon a little too quickly. Wisconsin plus 15.5. I think they're going to be able to run the ball. We'll see if Calhoun, Mr. Calhoun, has any eligibility left. We actually have a question about that coming up. So we'll see if he can get in there. Over at FanDuel, bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's FanDuel.com, the official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, there's talk about Van Dyke coming back. Like, he's
God.
So,
oh God.
Here's my question for you.
Do you want that for your year 3?
Well, if it's part of two quarterbacks, right? Because I do believe that there's an element of get as many arms in the system as in the room as you can. Not playing two at the same time. Right. Definitely not that. But I think he's probably depends on what happens with Longo too. This offense has been misfiring for a couple of years, but really since they got there. I don't know if there's a change in the works there. I want to ask you this because when this happened, when Fickle came in, we talked several times, and you said this is a 4-year process.
At minimum, yeah, it is.
And it feels like we're right on line with that.
This is as simple as it gets, man. Football is a team sport. It's the ultimate team sport. You have 85 skyways. Now it's going to go to 105 or whatever, but it's really going to be around 85 for most schools. Bama or Texas will have 90 and some walk-ons, but it's, whatever. It just takes forever. That's why recruiting well every year matters, because in the portal era, injuries, idiots on your roster, whatever, things just go sideways that you cannot project. I study these kids off the field. A lot of my rankings or things that I say, I don't give the backdoor on the reasoning, but it's like, I don't think he's going to be that good, blah, blah. The reason is I know the kid's an idiot or he's got idiots around. I can't say that publicly, but I talk to guys all the time that do rankings at Rivals and all these places. They got to go around stuff, but we find out the backdoor on that too. We're like, man, this kid is a moron, but he's so talented. These schools are going to try him out. If he doesn't work, they're just going to cut him. Wisconsin won't take those kids. The other schools that do, if the kid is an idiot, they get rid of. They have the best of both worlds. That's why the SEC win. They don't care. They have no interest in how that works. Living in Auburn, Alabama, I can assure you that's how that works. So, but at the same time, they got to figure out something for this next year because the fan base isn't going to accept it. And they're still not. Name a receiver right now that you think Ohio State would have any interest in. It's on the Wisconsin roster. The slot could play there, but he could play there.
Yeah,
that's it.
It's Will Pauling, and
that's it.
Yeah, the point's valid. They did get Eugene Hilton Jr. in next year's cycle, but
he'll play right away.
He probably has to, right? Just from a talent standpoint.
I mean, he may not know the route tree for Wisconsin and the playbook, right? But he'll play 250 snaps next year.
Let me ask you this.
Okay,
Wisconsin going to USC this weekend, going into the Coliseum. Wisconsin coming off a bye week. USC coming off a week where Michigan kind of bullied them a little bit, threw the ball 32 times in a victory. Do the Badgers have a path to win here just by playing a little bully ball?
It's plausible to do it. They're going to need a couple of things, though. I mean, you could always want the block punt and all that stuff, but they've got to have something that it may not be the most exciting play, a throwback screen to the tight end or something where they get an explosive out of a passing play that really they didn't do that much. It's just they outthought him. Because, again, Will is only going to do so much. If he runs a deep route and scores, it'll shock me. But the safety knows where he's at all times because he's going to beat most guys in front of him. He's legit. But they don't have anybody else like that. That means this is how it works. They can't pass. Safeties come in the box. 3rd down and 6. Over and over and over. Michigan's O-line and they're running back, the Mullings kid, that he carried like 5 guys on that play or whatever. He's an animal. Like Wisconsin's had some guys like that kid is a dude. That was just will. Wisconsin can try that, but I don't know if they've got that kid. That was ridiculous. That last drive, that's the definition of heart and team chemistry, because that quarterback couldn't throw it in the ocean if he was swimming in the middle of the Atlantic. Yeah. He is horrible, but he's an athlete. He's a big dude. He's one of the guys I saw at the Elite 11 a number of years ago in Dallas. Orgy? Yeah, he was the same one that Klubnik was at, and the former guy that I call the mullet now at University of Texas. I went to see them, and he was there. I'm like, who's that guy? Looked great. Threw it about 3 times. We were done with him, but he's terrible. But they just beat people up. I don't think you can do that over and over, especially since it just happened to SC. That guy can coach. The DC's legit. They'll make some tweaks, and they not having the big guy will hurt them a little bit. But Michigan still got more receiver talent than Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. I mean, they can literally play 8 in the box from play 1. That's hard, man. Why would I pick anybody to win when you can do that and you know SC's going to score? Their quarterback is legit. I know he's not Caleb. Don't get me wrong, but Miller Moss is a pretty good player, and they got guys. If Branch is healthy, I have no idea. I haven't checked on their status, but if he is healthy, I've seen him live from 5 feet away. You ain't got nobody to cover him. Nobody got nobody to cover him. There won't be an NFL slot corner that can cover him. He's ready now. Good luck. Well,
and Orgy couldn't throw, but when you're playing bully ball, it helps to have a mobile 230-pound quarterback who can.
He's an animal. I mean, he's what Wisconsin needs at flex tight end. Like literally, he would be an NFL player if he devoted himself to it. And I'm not exaggerating. Flat out would be an NFL flex tight end in a heartbeat. He's powerful. He's mobile. He's pretty agile laterally too. So goal line, RPO, or anything like that, he can hit the guy in the flat or kill the cheerleader on the sideline by accident. But he's got an arm and just don't know where he's going. His best route is just to run you over. And he might run over your middle linebacker. That's a player that way. But, man, he's a bad passer.
Yeah, he's terrible. Like, he can't throw the ball at all. But the other part of that is, Michigan was able to they just mauled USC's offensive line. Wisconsin can't do that. Wisconsin doesn't have those dudes on the defensive line. How would you play Moss if you can't get pressure with the front 4? Would you say, to hell with it, we're going to blitz and be aggressive? Or would you say, no, we're going to back off and we're just going to make you dink and dunk down the field, hopefully?
I don't know how much experience the Badgers have on defense, but this is the way it has to work. And if they don't have a ton of experience, what I'm about to say is completely worthless. But you've got to be able to adjust on every snap. You need an NFL scheme for this week. I know that's asking a lot. The only teams like Penn State, Notre Dame's defense is uber NFL, but he's in year 3 there. He's really good. Georgia, I mean, Kirby's Kirby.
They have Alex Grinch, the Badgers do, in the secondary as the safeties coach.
Yeah, well, that helps you. You've got a guy that has seen what they've done. Mm-hmm. So you at least have some ideas. But, I mean, there's only 3 or 4 teams that really do that because they got to be able to play man occasionally if they come after him. But you can't play just one thing against Miller Moss. He's very smart. And he has guys that are better than you. He might give some kind of motion over to the guy on the left, far left, and say, just stay there. He's just running a slot fade because he sees a matchup with Zachariah Branch. He's like, this is 6. Mm-hmm. You play man on him. I'm telling you that you could strike up the band for the Trojans now and parade that stupid horse around the stadium because it's not going to be good. He could go for 200 yards. You have to be able to play zone and get a couple of picks, deflections, hands up. I hate the old school Penn State defense, but a little bit of that's got to be mixed in because there's a chance you can get fumbles, big hits. They fumble, they get 15 yards. Who cares? It's like a 15-yard punt. You got to win that way. And you got to have a scoop and score or something like that to win. I have no faith in for what you said. I thought he was a little more mobile, so that's my fault. They're going to score about 17 points without help. That's my guess. They don't have a scoop and score and or a turnover that sets up a short field. Why would they score 20? Michigan struggled to get into that range at home with more talent.
With a pick 6. A quick break for our friends of the show. returning friends of the show over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is awesome. They're the easiest, simplest daily fantasy sports platform that's out there. You can really, really easily go through and you're just picking less or more on 2 to 6 different player stat projections. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Plus, they're the only real daily money fantasy platform that has an injury insurance platform policy. Like injuries happen in football. We've seen it with Tyler Van Dyke. You would hate to see your fantasy season or your fantasy day go up in flames because of that. Prize Picks has got you covered with a fantasy insurance policy so your lineups can stay in play even if the worst happens, even if football happens, because that's kind of what football is. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of those picks don't hit. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege and you get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONCollege on Prize Picks. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50. It's guaranteed over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, let's get back into this, finish up this show. As always,
yeah. I mean, SC's defense is pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good.
I definitely think Wisconsin is going to come in and try to lean on them. And I want to get into leaning on them. Barrett Alexander, part of that USC defensive line rotation, which is, listen, I don't know. I don't think it's nothing. I think sometimes this gets overplayed. I don't think it's nothing that they just played Michigan and then a week later have to turn around and play another at least big offensive line that's going to want to run the ball. And now they're down Barrett Alexander. How much stock do you put in the physical game 1 week, coming back, playing another potentially physical game the next week, and then you lose a defensive lineman on top of it?
It's hard. This is one of the things I learned mid-90s, etc. They would talk about schedules, SEC, Big Ten, whatever. If you get past about game 4, this is, to the point, injuries are piled up. In this case, an opt-out, which don't get me started on that. One player changes everything because Bear's going to play. You may hate the kid. You can't teach 6'3.5", 330 and agile. God only made so many of those. They're going to have to play guys, that aren't as good, probably multiple. And instead of 5 or 10 reps, those guys are going to get 30. Second half, if Wisconsin's within 3 at halftime, there's a chance. They got to, look, the coaches for SC will never admit this. They know that. They're going to come out blazing with every trick play, every motion, every shift to try to get some points early to make Wisconsin come out of the run game because they know they're not going to have the depth. You can't lose Bear Alexander. It doesn't work. So if you do that, good luck. But as the saying goes, you got to see how it works out. But if Wisconsin's within 3, maybe 6 points at halftime, I know it's boring. I would have the most conservative game plan in the world because the most important stat in this game is the amount of time that Miller Moss is standing on the sidelines bored out of his mind. They're not stopping him if he's going back out on the field over and over. He's really good. And then on top of it, their D-line is sucking oxygen on the sidelines too when Miller goes out on the field with Zachariah and all those guys. They're good, man. And they got a power running back from Atlanta. I know the kid. He's an animal. He'll grind on you too. He's kind of a Wisconsin-style back. He wants to lay the hammer. I met the kid. He's not the kind of guy you'd want to make mad. So they're in for it there. They got to stay close in the first half. They do that, they got a puncher's chance.
And Wisconsin, 9th in the country time of possession right now, looking very old school Wisconsin-ish in that sense.
Sometimes you got to adapt. Like you can complain about what they're doing with their offense, but you're not going to make a gourmet meal with Walmart products. You know what I mean? Like, where's the elite wide receiver? Look at the kids they had at North Carolina at receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, they had speed galore. He can't run his offense at Wisconsin. They just can't. They're not getting the kids they need in recruiting. And that was my concern. When I first came on the show, I know you told me about comments like, oh, Brian's, this and that. I'm not wrong, man. This is the way it is. Recruiting is about 80% of your program. And Wisconsin is not meeting that bar, especially in the much improved Big Ten. They're not in the stratosphere. This 6-6, 8-4 till that gets fixed.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Last part I wanted to hit on you, and I'm fascinated by your perspective on this very, very new trend of players opting out to redshirt 3 games into the season because they either have seen a better offer, they've heard of a better offer, or they feel like the school had offered them something and what they're getting isn't that. Whatever it is, we saw it at UNLV with the starting quarterback, where we just talked about Bear Alexander at USC, the defensive lineman. These will not be the last players that do this. What are your thoughts on this?
Depends on the scenario. Let me give you another. I forget the kid's name. One of Notre Dame's backup corners, he got beat out, is redshirting as a senior. He's played. He's just okay. He'll probably go get his grad degree at San Jose State or something. He's a California kid. Okay, he wasn't the guy. Guys like Bear Alexander are 1,000,000% mercenaries, and I cannot stand them. That guy can hit the road. I know he's talented, but he is the epitome of what's wrong with athletics in society in America a lot of the times. Me. You're better off without if you're USC, in my opinion. You can't have that in your locker room because that'll permeate and other players will be like, me. At least Bear Alexander is super talented. That's not debatable. He was arguably the best D tackle in the country coming out of high school, out of the Dallas area. However, there are some circumstances that I get it. Let me give you one. If you think that you're a guy that might get drafted and you're a quarterback, but you're a pretty good college quarterback and you're at some G5, I get it. Because even if you start just 1 year at a school like Ole Miss or Tennessee or Kentucky, like Kentucky sucks at quarterback every year, and the kid they got will be gone after next year. They'll be back in the portal. Kentucky's got deep pockets. You go make $800,000 for a year? I get it. There are exceptions to it. It's the kid that's already a millionaire and screwed over his team and signed on the dotted line. There needs to be legislation. Once you sign, you got to finish the year. If you don't, you're penalizing you. It's literally, no matter every state, you make the money up until the time it's prorated. Now, maybe it is already. I don't know. But I hope these schools are smart enough to do that. Quarterbacks in some of these spots are probably like, either you give me the whole thing or I'm not signing. It's that leverage stuff. So it's really tricky. It's school to school. It's NIL collective to NIL collective. Like on my Locked On Seminole show, I tell people all the time, they get mad. They're not in the stratosphere with the money that Miami is spending. That really makes them mad. But the guy that's Miami's dude owns the soccer team in South Florida. Good luck. That's like an open bank account. So that's what you're competing. That's why they got Cam Ward. He just took the biggest check. By the way, he's good.
Yeah, he is. We saw him in person last year.
I told you last year that was going to happen too.
I like Cam Ward, man. That dude's nice.
Oh, nice.
That dude's nice.
If he was at Wisconsin right now, even with what they had, they could beat Michigan. They could beat USC. They have a puncher's chance in any game because he makes plays that have nothing to do with coaching. He'll throw it underarm basically around a guy and complete a pass. That's not coaching. That's NIL. So if Wisconsin doesn't get with the program on the NIL, I'm afraid they're just going to be stuck in the same boat that they're in right now until we both die. It's coming where next year, I think the House, I don't know if that's going to finish, where it's over 20%, it's going to go to the athletes, but there are going to be other schools that still add on. You still have to add on to it. The state of Wisconsin's got to change for them to take that next step as a program. I think that's the biggest thing that you need to talk about on your show. It won't be very popular, but it's about money. Up front, guaranteed moolah for elite players. That's where Wisconsin's at. And I don't think the coaching staff at Wisconsin will be very public about it, but I guarantee you privately, they're like, look, this ain't working like we thought. Either we fix this or this probably ain't going to work. Because the expectations for fans, I don't think fans know how complex NIL is. Like the stuff I get told all the time, it just blows my mind. It changes my perspective constantly. And now these opt-outs, it's the newest thing. There's always something extra that causes coaches anger and why guys like Nick Saban literally retired. He wants no part of it. So it's very, very daunting. And I don't think there's any one answer, even for a school like Georgia. They lose kids too. There are kids that would rather go somewhere else and play for a little bit more money than be coached up at Georgia. You're going to go to a better staff. I care less about Georgia, but you're going to get a better education and a better combination with their coaching. Some other like G5 school or whatever. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, good luck to you. But their kid's doing that. So then you got the kid at like UNLV, the quarterback, who might end up at Georgia or or Kentucky or Wisconsin, or Lord only knows where, Florida State. Like they're not in a very good quarterback spot. Oh my goodness. So these guys got a chance to hit the home run and go make a mill. Everybody's looking for a savior.
It's hard to blame them, but let me ask you this, and then we'll get you out of here because we're getting up on 30 minutes already. But how does that play in the locker room, do you think, during the season your starting quarterback leaves? Now, I think there's players that are going to say, go make your bag. It's business. I would do the same. But there's got to be some dudes who are also like, bro, we're 3 games in.
I would imagine he got some 4-letter words from some people, like a senior offensive lineman that came back, guys that this is their last round. Even if it's a friend, they're not going to be happy. They might tell him something. There's going to be some lingering effects. It would bother me. Even if I understood, like, you told me all spring, you're going to be the guy. We went through all those summer workouts. I'm an offensive line, big fat guy running in the heat. And this is the crap we get? Because the next guy ain't very good.
Yep.
He didn't get any of the reps with the ones all fall camp. Now he's trotting out onto the field. Yeah, that's not going to go well for the Rebels. So, yeah. Probably going around campus ain't going to go well either.
No, it's true. He's probably not going to be doing a lot of that, if we're being honest. The dude's not going to like classes tomorrow, is my point.
He better switch to online.
Yeah, I think it's probably already happened. All right, he is Brian Smith. I'm Ryan Aaron. Locked On Badgers as always. Always appreciate Brian stopping by, bringing an outside perspective to the program, which is always helpful and useful. Brian, thank you so much, man. Till next time.
Appreciate it.